Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel for another episode of Shouting into the Void. Surprise, surprise. It's a Saturday. It's another episode. Who'd have guessed, right? Except
Not
it's
me.
not a Saturday when we're recording. It's actually Tuesday.
That's
It's a
true.
little peek behind the scenes. Yes, this is the weekly show where myself, Connor, and Liam, again, he's here somewhere,
Sounded
in the
like you were
ether.
unsure of my name then.
Oh yes, I am. I always have to do a double check every time. I see you every week, often more than once, but I'm still not sure who you really are.
No, well,
That's
neither am I, if that helps.
oh, well, all right. I feel less bad now. But yes, this is the weekly show where we discuss Doctor Who, pretty much specific episodes, and those specific episodes came from 2005 onwards. We've watched so many that we're now in Series 5, Episode 8. Over halfway through Matt Smith's first series, which is madness.
Yeah, this one in particular has flown by this series for me.
Yeah, I thought that it's. I mean, maybe it's because I've not seen them in a while, and so therefore I'm sort of enjoying them more and just not paying attention to what's coming up and what's sort of happened. So we're just like, oh my god, this is great. Maybe we won't be like that today, or at least I might not be like that today. We are discussing the Hungry Earth, which is Series 5's second two-parter, written by none other than future showrunner Chris Chibnall. And it sees Amy, Rory and the Doctor arrive in Wales in the year of our Lord 2020, the famously boring year where nothing ever happened and everyone just went about their daily lives and nothing changed. They stumble upon a mining facility which is digging into the ground, and then a man gets captured, and then Amy gets captured, and then it's whoops, what's going on? And then they figure out it's the Silurians, and then we end, and then the rest is next week. So what did you think of this episode?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I couldn't remember like big chunks of it going in. I wasn't really sure exactly went down. I remembered Amy getting sucked. Sucked away.
I was gonna say swallowed, and I don't think that's even better. I don't think that's necessarily better.
I don't think there's any good way to really
taken.
say what
She was taken by the
she
ground.
was absorbed by the earth. So yeah, that happened. I've got so many images in my head now, but yeah, I remembered that bit. I remembered the I say cliffhanger very tentatively. As I
you remember the episode ending, and that's it.
The episode, I remember the credits rolling. Halfway through the story for sure.
Yep.
Maybe not a cliffhanger, but I'm sure we'll talk about that. And obviously like the Salarian redesign and everything like that. I'd completely forgotten about the Simpsons movie doming off the thing. It's all nighttime now and all of that. So that was quite fun to experience. I remembered a lot of the supporting characters, for better or worse. I'm sure we can talk about. But yeah, revisiting it, I had a lot of fun with it. I enjoyed, it was more so the Doctor and Rory's episode than Amy's, because she's kind of, for plot reasons sidelined. And I think that's probably for the best, because there are a few kind of new characters in this one. So it is nice to see a balance, I guess. And I think Amy has a lot more to do in the second part, which makes sense. And yeah, I did very much enjoy a surprising amount of the character dynamics in this one, actually. I did kind of surprise myself at which characters I leant towards more in this one. Ones I wasn't surprised by how I felt about some of them, but I think that will only get worse. But yeah, it's like a reintroduction to like a classic monster being brought back into it. I thought this was a decent first crack at it. It's not my favorite of the series by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not my least favorite. I do very much enjoy it. I had a good time with it.
Fair enough. I thought it was fine overall. I think for the first episode, I think it was very drawn out a lot of the time. And it could have easily been sort of condensed, and maybe we'll see how it goes next week. But at the minute, I don't feel like this needed to be a two-parter. It could have just been a one episode deal.
Which is ironic, because they cut 15 minutes out of this episode.
Oh god, or maybe that might have made better. But there's just, I think it was, for me, it was just a bit too. There wasn't enough in there, I don't think, to keep my interest. While I do like the Silurians and their redesign, and naturally, the Doctor and his dynamics with everyone's great. I just think it just plodded along a bit too much. Not saying that everything needs to be like action heavy all the time, all big dramatics and stuff, but it just didn't. I wasn't interested enough in the humans, especially once things start to happen, they're all kind of a bit flaky, I think. Especially at least one, which I'm sure we'll come on to. But that might change next week. So although this is a part one, so naturally things can change, and it can make you retroactively look at part one in a better light next week. But for now, I think, for me at least, it'll have to pick up a lot of pieces, unfortunately. But we will come on to that, because I do have some positives, and I'm sure you do too, because every week we try and get 3, and then we at least try and get 3 negatives as well. So with that being said, what is your first one?
My first one's going to be the Salarian Redesign.
Same.
Very unpopular choice.
Apparently.
But I don't care. Fight me. I think a back to basics approach for it, I think, actually does really work, because they are supposed to be from the Earth and not really look like aliens.
Yep.
I think it's a good in between of like reptiles used to inhabit the Earth, and here we are now as humans. I think it's actually quite clever what the story's going for, where it goes with the negotiation stuff and trying to see that they're not so different. The fact that they do look a lot more humanized in this appearance, I actually think helps that and benefits that. So yeah, I very much enjoyed that look. Like the armor and stuff that they're wearing, I think is really interesting. I think the makeup job on it's really cool. And we're going to see a lot more of that in the next episode, because a lot of the characters have different
at least
looks.
3 of them do.
Exactly, all the different Silurians, have like different patternings and stuff like that. I love the design of their masks as well. I've always enjoyed the look of those. Even just the brief glimpses of it you get, when the Doctor sees it in the car, approaching him. I like the brief glimpse of that we get. And all of that, I think, is very well designed. I think it looks really cool. I remember, can't remember, I think it might have been the cinema trailer for Series 5, where they're you remember floating through a purpley vortex, and coming out, and then right at the end they're lying on the ground, and then that bursts through this giant Salarian head. I was like, what the hell is that? Bit of I don't know, throws you off a bit, because it's like a giant floating head, and it turns out to be a Silurian. But that's always stuck in my mind for some reason, thinking, oh, that looks quite cool. I wonder what that is. So I do like that it ties back into a creature we've seen before in the classic series, but this is a reintroduction for people who may not have seen that or forgotten it. They were gone by the early 80s and never mentioned again, really. So it was cool to bring them back. I think they look really cool. I think their redesign, I can see why people may not like it, like the purists who like the old Silurian designs, but it is a different group of Silurians in this instance. So I think it makes sense for them to look different. It's also, at this point, 2010. It's 30 years later. I'd rather them look good than exactly the same as they used to. If they couldn't find the balance, and clearly they couldn't, then why not go for something a bit different? So I really like the look of them personally. And yeah, I think they are a nice addition to New Who.
Yep, I think that's fair, and I completely agree with everything. I think the fact that they have sort of more human faces would also make it easier to have emotional moments with them, which I think we'll see a lot more of next week. But it allows the audience to sort of connect and react to them a bit more, and the actors as well, because they're not just acting at a sculpted face that doesn't move. And they do obviously point out in the episode that I've met other ones before, but this is a different section. So they clearly acknowledge that, hey, they're different. It's different. It's a different thing. It's different, But fine, if people don't want to like it, then fine, don't like it. You be boring. You go away. But saying that, a cool episode they could do now that they brought Sea Devils back with their pretty much original design is bring back the original Silurians and have a Silurian civil war. That would be great with the new design and the old ones. Maybe they will. Maybe that's going to be in the pipeline. But I think they look great. They look a lot sleeker. I think that's fair to say they're sleeker than what they look like in the 70s, because naturally everything is from the show. But yeah,
and they actually let females play Silurians now. Which
what?
Is nice.
No
that
way.
Also helps.
And I'm interested to see where they go next episode, and to meet all the sort of other ones. We've only got a hint towards any others that might be alive or awake this week. So what is your second positive?
What is my second one? The Doctor and Elliotts relationship is my second
Okay.
one. Mainly like the scene where they talk about him leaving home and does the Doctor miss it and stuff. And he's like, oh yes, I do. And the way the Doctor comforted him about his dyslexia and stuff like that. I love those little moments where the Doctor makes sure everyone knows that they are unique and important, stuff like that. I think that's why he's such a loved character universally, really. And then moments like that, he's like, well, don't worry, I can't make a decent meringue. And I mean, I've never tried, so same.
No,
mood,
true.
can relate. I just buy them from the co-op. But yeah, I really like their little kind of dynamic and their connection. This one, encouraging him to like draw and everything, and talking about are they monsters that are coming up, and normally the monsters are scared of him. Oh, I wonder if they're going to be scared of him in the finale for some reason, and maybe do something about that. I wonder.
Foreshadowing in my Doctor Who.
In my Doctor Who story arcs in my Doctor Who.
Unbelievable.
Never. Doctor Who never brings anything back ever in this two-parter.
Even these Salarians are brand new. What are you on about? They've never existed before. The show didn't exist before 2005.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's not. None of it's canon until Christopher Eccleston.
Exactly.
And even then, it's probably not even canon now. None of it's canon.
17 years in the future.
Yeah, when it gets rebooted in the 60th, none of it's going to be canon. So.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's fine.
But yeah, I really enjoyed their little dynamic. I thought, as far as child actors go, I thought he did a good job. I mean, he's probably like 20 or something now. Depressing.
Oh God, yeah.
Thinking he's probably like our age, but that's disgusting to think about. But yeah, I very much enjoyed that dynamic a lot. I thought that scene in particular where they're kind of talking before he goes off and it all goes to shit because he's gone to get his headphones. I thought that was a really nice scene between the two of them. Yeah. You fool. And yeah, a nice little character moment. I think that's what I'd forgotten about this episode. That made me appreciate it. Come back to it. There are some really nice little character beats in this one that I very much enjoyed. I did find myself leaning towards some characters and rooting for them. So yeah, that was kind of one of those big moments. I really enjoyed Elliot as a whole in this first one, and I thought his dynamic with the Doctor was really interesting. So yeah, I thought that was a lot of fun to see those two together.
Elliot won't be sidelined next week, I'm sure.
That's the attitude, Connor. Well done. But yeah, I thought that was a really nice dynamic. I often think like the 12th Doctor and kids is always just iconic and like the best thing. So I do kind of forget when other Doctors have moments with like younger characters like that. And I thought that was a nice little standout of the episode for me. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. And sort of my second positive leans on that a little bit because it's just Matt Smith as sort of the 11th Doctor in the first place. Naturally, he's great, as he is in pretty much every episode. I think he again strikes a good balance between being calm and funny and then also sinister and angry as well.
Yeah, when he's telling her to put the weapons back, I'm like, oh my, he's going to kill you. Like, run, Ambrose, run.
If you don't put them back, he will use them on you. So obviously you've got, 11 and Ambrose is one example. 11 Elliot is one of being nice. And then obviously him versus the Salarian, who I've forgotten the name of. That's it.
Leia?
Very... he can, in that one, he's very much a case of trying to keep the peace, but at the same time, it's like, look, if you push my buttons, I will just let these humans do whatever the fuck they want. So don't play dumb with me when she tries to be like, oh yeah, I'm the only one that lives. It's like, come on,
I love that he gets so pissed off with that.
I think he's great through this, and yeah, he has a way of sort of calming everyone in this episode. And I mean, sometimes to its detriment, everyone just instinctively trusts him, which I think is obviously, we'll get past that because naturally every time the Doctor turns up somewhere, he has to be in charge. That's kind of how it works. But yeah, I think he does a good job of sort of holding the team together, and that's why next week when he leaves, it all sort of falls apart. Which is great. It's good that it sets that up and sets up sort of how integral he is to keeping the peace. Wonder if that'll ever be used in the future. Maybe the 50th?
Nah.
Nah, definitely not.
Doubt it.
Definitely not with the recurring.
Doctor Who doesn't bring anything back.
Definitely not. Yes. What is your third positive then?
My third positive, to my surprise, is Nazarene.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Ambrose then. I was like, you fool.
No, she wasn't as bad as I remember, but I think
Okay.
she's terrible in part 2. It's
No.
probably going to be the thing, because she hasn't really done much of a thing yet.
Mhm.
I mean, don't get me wrong, she has a terrible moment at the end of this one, but yeah, I remember always liking Nazarene anyway. But I really enjoyed her in this one. She's definitely, I think, probably of the side characters, I think she's my favorite. I actually find it quite refreshing that she's like, you know, the Doctor's the only person who's made sense of any of this to me thus far, so I'm inclined to kind of trust him. I like that we have a character like that, because obviously we have a character like Ambrose who's like, no, this is all stupid and wrong. So I like that there is like a balance, and it's not just like no one believes him. So I thought that was refreshing. And you know, when unexpected people get brought onto the TARDIS, I always think that's quite fun as well.
Yeah.
You kind of forget, like, oh yeah, you traveled in the TARDIS. That's bizarre. And like her dynamic and stuff with him, I thought, you know, the brief instances we've gotten of that, I'm excited to see if we get much more of that in part 2. I can't quite remember, but when they like, you know, they like get pulled down and they crash and fall over, and she like just snaps one of his braces and like, you idiot, look what you've done. I thought that was a really nice little moment. His little ow. So yeah, I think Mira Sayal, I think, is the actress's name. You know, I've seen her in a few bits. She normally does comedy. So I like that she's kind of broken away from that kind of typecast in this, and I think she's really good in it. I think she's very likable. I like her dynamic with the Doctor a lot. I quite like her and Tony's relationship. I can kind of see myself rooting for that. I think they're quite sweet. And yeah, I like that we have a character who is, you know, very doubtful of the Doctor at first and be like, why the hell are you here? But I like that we do have a character who is willing to like learn new things and like, well, you know, I run this project, I've been working on it for X number of years, I know everything about everything, this isn't possible. You know, I'm not going to be listening to you, I'm going to do things for myself. I like that she's just open to the new information and you know, everything that's kind of going on. I guess that leans back into the whole Sherlock Holmes quote thing that Elliot goes by. Clearly Nazarene has a similar thought pattern. And yeah, I really enjoyed her and I liked her presence very much. I found myself quite enjoying her and rooting for her. So we'll see if that continues next week. You know, and I know she's like an instrumental person in the negotiations in the next one. So, you know, she's the kind of person I wouldn't mind representing the human race and stuff like that. So I think this episode did a good job of setting up for her, because she's open to learning new things and stuff, puts her very nicely into perspective when she has to kind of negotiate with Salarians. So I really enjoyed her in this one.
It's fair enough. I think that's completely fair. And I think she is definitely one of the better side characters in this, if not maybe the best one. Especially because she gets, you know, a fair amount of screen time in this one. So I will be interested to see how she's used next week. If she's just like, there you go, plonk you down, negotiate, we'll cut back to you every 2 minutes. I fear that it could be the case, but who knows? We will see. My sort of third positive is, and again, I think I had to sort of stretch for the third positive, unfortunately. But my third one is Rory, I think.
Awesome.
Just because he had a lot to do this week. And it's a big change from him sort of wanting to be that homely, you know, settle down type character last week, with obviously him wanting to stay in that dream that they were all, you know, having the baby and that kind of thing, to literally diving feet first into the grave this week, where he sort of, you know, he didn't really try very hard to sort of explain himself, but he went along with and tried to figure out what was going on and how he could help, and what he was doing. And obviously he was kind of left in charge with the humans when the Doctor left. We will see how he handles that next week. I mean, it's not his fault, but we will see how it goes. But either way, I think he's definitely, you know, you can see that he's now fully on board and he's part of the team in this one. There's no sort of dynamic shift at all. It's very much a flat team structure. And even the Doctor's like, are you sure Rory's gonna catch us up? Shouldn't we wait for him, kind of thing at the start? And you know, again, it's kind of Amy being like, oh, it's fine, we'll go. Which again, you know, she gets out of a little bit, you know, so, oh, we're still together in 10 years. It's like, fuck off. We've had this discussion last week. Stop it. Stop being so mean.
She put on the ring. He didn't want her wearing it.
I know.
It's his fault they got separated.
I know. Literally. But yeah, I think he does. He's great in this one. You know, he helps the Doctor capture the Salarian by screaming and jumping out the back of the van, which is hilarious. Yeah, I think he's great in this. He really holds his own, especially considering this is like an Amy Light episode, because she's pretty much sidelined for the whole thing.
Yeah.
He is effectively the main companion, I guess, of the episode this time. So it's good that he gets that role, and I think it's done very well.
Yes.
So have you got any other sort of positive points you want to touch on?
I do. I have a couple. Kind of, I guess, continuing on from that, I did put like the Rory Doctor dynamic in this one. I do like that Rory had a lot to do. Wonder why that is. So yeah, he's always a lot of fun. I just love Rory anyway. But I do like that we've seen some growth from how the two argue from the Vampires of Venice to now. You know, Vampires of Venice was very much Rory's like, this life is dangerous. You know, Amy's gonna get hurt and everything, and something does happen in this one. But he's not like, I told you this would happen. I told you so. You know, I think he's kind of learned how the Doctor is and what he's like, and you know, the relentlessness in which he'll try and like save people. So when the Doctor's like, oh, I will get her back, he kind of just accepts it and moves on. Okay, for now, let's just get on with what we need to do, and they kind of work together quite comfortably with that. So I like that there's, you know, a shift in that dynamic already. And I did very much enjoy their scenes together. I think just from like a production standpoint and like effects and everything, I think the people getting sucked into the earth is horrible. It makes me very uncomfortable watching it. And like, I just, so terrifying. I couldn't even imagine it. And the fact that I know the actors actually get pulled through like a ground like that is just horrendous. I can see why Karen Gillan hated it so much, because it's just, ugh, no. What a way to, if that was it, what a way to go. And then also, I forgot how brutal that shot is of Mo when he's been dissected and he's just that covered. So that was horrible as well. And that's obviously where they left things off with Amy, with Nate going, hello. So yeah,
the COVID man wearing a mask.
Yeah,
he knew.
Village is very ahead of its time. You know, 2020, people wearing masks,
isolated
village,
from
people were
else,
people were away, and so it fits. It's fine. You know, future Amy and Rory really did keep their distance. So,
they went out for their. I put in my notes that they were out for their one walk a day.
awesome.
their one piece of exercise.
Yeah, 60 minutes of exercise a day, kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that shot of him there being dissected and stuff was absolutely gross, but in a very good way. I did like that kind of brutality and just a little hint of like what the Salarians are up to in their little city under the earth, before they can properly expand on it in the next one. So I liked that as well.
Yeah, fair enough. I think sort of my additional positive is sort of the whole live dissection / the idea of the live dissection. Just looks horrible, and the fact that he's like, yeah, I was alive when they were doing it, I was awake. I was like, oh
yeah, he's like, just like horrible. Close your eyes and take them. Like,
yeah, oh god, I was like, do they at least anesthetize? Yeah, that's right, isn't it? I can't even say it. Do they at least make
apply
the area numb? Do they apply a local anesthetic at least? But who knows? We'll never know. So
I just start with my neck. Just cut my neck open.
Yeah, just kill me.
I want this to be quick.
I don't need to be alive. Thanks.
I mean, to be fair, I'd probably die just in that little like plastic thing where they shot all the gas at Amy. Like,
oh yeah, that's
I guess they're claustrophobic in there, and that I want to pass away in here.
Like, first of all, you're literally sucked through the ground, and then you almost feel like you're buried alive. So yeah, great. Thanks.
Yeah, considering there wasn't much of Amy this week, what would you get first? She went through it. So.
Oh, she really did. But yes, that's sort of it for the positives then. We'll move swiftly on to the negatives. I'll kick us off with my first one, which might be up there with yours as well. The cliffhanger.
Yep, that's my first one.
The
cliffhanger that reveals nothing that we didn't already know or could have guessed.
It very much went, there's a city. Okay, we're gonna leave it there, lads. We'll see you next week. Bye.
It feels like that would work so much better in a Target novelization as just like an end of a chapter, and then you just carry on reading. It's not like I need to watch like now, and you could just binge the next one. You just put it on straight away. Fine. But when you had to wait a week in between that, I was like, I felt like I want to be more excited for what happens next. I'm like, anyone could have guessed that was going to be the case. Like,
yeah, it was very much like when you mentioned it last week, like, oh, the cliffhangers are just like, oh, I couldn't remember what it was, and there's a reason why I couldn't remember it. Even when I was watching the episode 3, I was like, what's the threat here? How are they going to end it? And then when they saw the city, I was like, is this it? And then the credits went, I went, oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay then. All right. It's just a bit plain. It very much felt like it was a classic Who end of episode. Like if this was a classic Who story, this would be like the end of episode 3, ready to go into episode 4 to continue. And it just or you could argue that they filmed all of this as one big long episode. They went, let's slice it there.
Yeah, the fact that
And
they've
then-
cut 50 minutes out, I'm wondering, like, was there something after this that was supposed to be a
Yeah.
cliffhanger, and there's like, this just doesn't fit anymore if we need to make our
Yeah.
time slot? I don't know.
But I don't know. I don't know where you would put in a cliffhanger because there's not really a threat. I mean, maybe you could have Ambrose, spoilers for part 2, but Ambrose killing the Salarian and then that be the cliffhanger, but then that then takes away some bits from last week, from the next week, and then it's
or just like save off on the Amy scene and just end on that with the guy approaching her with the scout. Just like something like
swap
that.
them around or something.
Yeah,
have them reveal the city and then have Amy wake up and see the guy.
Yeah, because like we're seeing scenes set in the city and then they reveal the city and like just doing it the way around.
Yeah, it's not the best. It's very much not cliffhanger. It's very much like right, we're pausing here. We'll see in a week's time. And yeah, I just think it's definitely, I think, the worst cliffhanger we've had.
Yeah,
cliffhanger.
It feels like pausing an hour and a half into Stranger Things is 2.5 hour finale.
Yeah, yes, definitely, and even so, you can do that, and it probably will be a better cliffhanger than what this was.
I feel mean saying it.
Yeah,
because I also had some problems with boring Flux cliffhangers on a couple of episodes.
Yeah.
But
written by the same person.
Yeah, that's why I feel bad about it. But that's the reality. But we also got the Village of the Angels cliffhanger, which I think is probably one of the best Doctor Who cliffhangers ever. So.
Yeah, I mean, at least in this one, Amy's not going to duck out of the way and run away from the scalpel man. So
makes it laugh every time.
No, he just gets a phone call instead.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just a bit naff. Have you got any other thoughts for the cliffhanger?
It's just that it pants, isn't it? It does feel like I know what it's like. When Day the Doctor aired, our TV, when they recorded the episode for us, mucked up. I think it maybe ran over or something, but it stops just before the final bit where he walks out and all the doctors are there. It just cuts off when we watched it. And oh, it ends there. That's what it feels like. It feels like I was watching it on BBC iPlayer, but BBC iPlayer forgot to upload the last 2 minutes and it just stops. And just they put the credits in instead. That's what it feels like. It's just, it's not like the worst thing Doctor Who could ever possibly do.
No.
It's not horrendous by any stretch of the imagination. There are laughably bad cliffhangers in Classic Who, almost certainly in their hundreds. But yeah, it's just such a not cliffhanger. It feels bizarre to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't do what I think cliffhangers are there to do, which is to have an exciting moment and a chance to have a story. Yeah. And if you're watching it week to week like this was when it aired, get people hyped for the next one. So I just think it fundamentally fails at what a cliffhanger is supposed to do, personally. So it's a strange choice, but again, if they did cut out as much as they did, and they had to cut a quarter of it out when they kind of sent it to the BBC and they were like, no, you have a 45-minute time slot, we're not changing it. What can you really do? They maybe have to just shift something. It's such an anomaly. It feels like it must have been something like that. So maybe, I don't know.
That's why Chibnall got rid of cliffhangers in his first series. He's like, nope, not doing that again.
Yeah, not being burned by that
again.
No
cliffhangers. And then he was forced into it for Flux. Like, God damn it. Fine, I'll do cliffhangers. And then,
at least he got longer episodes for Flux.
3 out of 5 ain't bad, I guess, in Flux.
Yeah.
I think most were all right.
Yeah.
But yes, so my sort of second negative, which again could be on your one, not sure. Ambrose.
Right.
She is the worst side character.
The worst.
She is also the worst. Yeah, I've got a number of notes that just say, Ambrose, you're terrible. Ambrose, stop, please. She's just not a very nice person in general, really. She very much brushes over the fact that her husband's been taken. She's like, oh, my husband's gone. Oh, okay, nice, thank you. The only good bit of character I guess she has is when she feels bad that her son's been taken, which is natural. But then obviously that sets off the spiral that we'll see mainly in next week. But I just think she's just not the best person. She comes across as very selfish, very self-centered, which again is kind of the point. So in theory, she's correct in terms of the point of what she's supposed to do.
Yeah, I don't think she's written to be like the nicest human in the world. You're supposed to relate to her or anything. but
no, but
it still can be aggravating to watch.
Yeah, she is definitely. She's just not the best. I mean, she's almost up there with a Roderick from series 1. Where's my money, Roderick? I would say
does she lean more towards Luke Rattigan from the Sontaran two-parter?
Maybe. I mean, they're
who
both
do you hate
very
worse?
entitled.
Who do you hate more?
I think it's probably Rattigan, isn't it? That's the worst one, but that's because he doesn't have the meme ability that Roderick does. Whereas Ambrose is sort of, I'd say she's the worst thing because she has no meme ability whatsoever. But yeah, she's not the best with this. Even with this small cast of characters, anyway, it stands out more because the other characters are effectively very nice. And I just don't think she's not the best. It's just hard to put into more words. It's just, she's just a bit selfish, horrible, not the best of humanity, as the Doctor sort of tries to get them to be. And I think it'll only be made worse next week.
Oh yeah, just remember the Doctor really tells her off, doesn't he? In the next one.
Well, and the fact that she was with the weapons as well in this one.
Yeah. I forgot. He like calls her like the worst of humanity in the next one, doesn't he? Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Exactly.
I look forward to that moment.
So what is your second negative?
My second negative is, let's have a look. I think for me, Elliott's kidnapping felt a bit forced. I think the setup of it was strange because we had that really nice scene with the Doctor and Elliott. Then he's like, "I got to go get my headphones," and the Doctor's like, "Yeah." It feels weird that he'd be like, maybe take someone with you, or just make him stay. Like, I get that he sympathizes with dyslexia and stuff, and he likes having the audio books with him. And
he has. I think the Doctor wants to make him feel that he can do things by himself, and he's not. Definitely. So that's why he's like, go on. But
I think in that specific situation, as they're getting ready for something to appear, and the Doctor is the one who knows how long it's going to be until they appear, the fact that he's like, off you go, I think is a bit strange. And then when he does disappear, his own mother takes about 10 minutes to realize that he's gone. Like, they're in the church, all the lights go out and everything, they're all just stood there for ages, and no one really notices. Like, that shows her priorities there, really. It takes her 10 minutes to realize that her son's missing and not there. I just think the means of setting that probably could have been done better. I get they'd want to like experiment on the child because they don't have any children there to experiment on. That's probably why they went for him. I assume they probably explore a bit more like why they took people in that way in the next one. But yeah, for me, I just think the setup to that moment, particularly with the nice Doctor and Elliott scene that came before it and stuff like that, it did feel like a very forced way of raising stakes rather than Amy, at least, it was unpredictable where the ground would kind of collapse underneath them, and she went to try and save Tony and everything, and that got her caught. And the opening scene, the guy is gonna kind of explore what this hole has just opened up. But that one, it just felt like, it's the end of the episode now, so probably we should have someone else get taken. And then as soon as it happens, all the other Salarians immediately go and leave a layer behind and everything. It just felt, I don't know, a bit less organic than the other ones, I guess. And just because of like some of the character beats we've gotten before and how attentive people probably should have been to that situation, it did feel a bit weird how that played out.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think that sort of leans into my sort of third negative as well, in the case of that. I think the episode just dragged a little bit. It felt a little bit too long for me, and it didn't really capture my. I found myself thinking, how long's left? It felt like it sort of kept going around in circles at sometimes. So I can't really remember what happens in part 2, so it might come back up. But at the minute, it's very unnecessary to have the graves being stolen. Also, the fact that that's why Ambrose calls the police. It's because the grave's gone rather than her missing husband, which obviously I don't think she knows about at that point. But
no, I assume he was probably just still on shift if he was doing a night shift.
Yeah, because it's very strange. Like, this grave that we've just dug up. It's either way. It's very strange to sort of call the police for that immediately, and then sort of have it doesn't quite line up, because in theory they should be at a funeral if they've done that, and then they haven't immediately called it. There's all that going on. So I don't think they need the whole Rory looking around the grave sequence. I think they could cut that out, and it would be a bit more streamlined. Maybe that's maybe that's Ambrose just saying, "Oh, I called you. Yeah, my husband's not come back from work," and then goes and has the cup of tea and has that conversation in the house where it's a bit quicker. And I think there's just, as you mentioned, Elliot sort of getting got. I get why that's happened because they need stakes or whatever, but at the same time, it's very much like we've just had we're about to have the Salarian be captured. Just had them captured.
Yes, I think
Elliot's gone, then they get her. Isn't that it?
I think so, yeah.
So yeah, you don't really need that. You could just have it go dark, and then are they here? Let's go get it, kind of thing. So you can trim that down as well, and then that obviously leads into the whole. It could just be one episode, but again, depends. Maybe in part 2 it'll be like, okay, now I see why they needed 2. They couldn't fit all this in part 1, but this one definitely felt a bit too long. It felt a bit like, oh, okay, especially because we didn't really see too much of Amy, and what we do see is probably more interesting than what we're seeing the humans go through. It's like, oh, where is she? What's going to happen? She's going to be dissected, and there's a guy coming after her. That's more interesting than, oh, it's a bit dark out here. Which, I'm glad that we move away from that a bit next week, and I think the stakes sort of go up a bit. But for now, I think it's just a bit. It feels like they're just padding their way until getting to the good bit. Unfortunately, but we'll see. I could be completely wrong, and part 2 could also be the same, but I don't think that'd be the case. Yeah, so for me, it was just a little bit too long. So what's your final negative?
My final one is it kind of ties into that in a way. I think it sets up a lot of subplots that I'm just not that interested in at this point in time. Maybe Cold Blood will prove me wrong on that. But like you were saying, the fact that when we do focus on Amy in this episode, I think it is a bit more interesting, and that's definitely the stuff I'd want to see more of. Obviously, it's a nice tease for part 2 because we do get more of it. So that's nice. But, I guess that doesn't reflect as strongly on the majority of this episode. And then it's the classic, oh, someone's got a disease or they're infected and they're not telling anyone about it. Like we've seen that time and time again. I'm not excited to see it done yet again with Tony. Like, sure, whatever, fine, one of those things. And I know it's kind of more motivation to get Ambrose pissed off so she kills Alea in the next one. Like, tell me how to cure my dad, all of that. But, it's one of those classic things. I'm like, oh, no, this again. And then Alea being like, oh, I know which one of you will kill me. I'm going to move my head a lot. Like,
it's pretty obvious who it's going to be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Even with hindsight, I guess, of course, we know. But even at the time, you're like, well, it's probably going to be Amber. She had the weapons, right?
I mean, Rory's
going to be her. Yeah. So, stuff like that. I'm like, well, that's great, but we're not going to be seeing that this week, are we? So you're just teasing us for no reason. And again, it's just like the promise of more, which of course part 2s normally would offer.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of at the expense of screen time in part 1, where you could be doing more interesting stuff, like the Doctor and Elliot scene, stuff like that. So they're setting up stuff that I'm like, I'm more interested in what you've already set up with the Amy stuff for next week. I think that's fine. You've done that already, rather than stuff like that. And then, for me, a very underwhelming cliffhanger as well. Probably doesn't really help.
No, yeah, I think that's fair. Maybe they just needed, they didn't want to pay Elliot more rates because then you have to pay more, or they work less if they're child actors. So maybe they're like, right, we need to get them out of the picture, so we're not paying as much. We need to cut the budget. So let's film 2 hours of him in the box, and then see you later.
Like why they happens to kill a certain Walking Dead character just before they need to start paying them more. What a coincidence!
Amazing, wow. But yeah, it's just a bit, I think that there is some good stuff in this, and it's just a bit. I mean, I think the cliffhanger sort of summarizes my feelings of, oh, is that it? I think is how I feel overall. But some other sort of bits for me is sort of, I get why Amy is sidelined, because there are other characters, but as we sort of mentioned, where she is more interesting than what we're not, what we are seeing. It would be if again, taking it back to series 1 and Bad Wolf, if we saw Rose in The Weakest Link and then just didn't cut back to her again until the very end when she's about to get got by the android. It's like, oh, hang on a minute, that was quite more interesting, but who knows? And then the other bit is the layout of the town. The opening sort of sequence makes it look like the town is really far away from the mining site because he has to cycle down this really long road, and the mining site isn't in the background or anything. And then like halfway through the episode, it's like, oh yeah, they're like right next door to each other. It's like, what? Did the whole thing just move? Then they're basically over the. I think that was just probably poor editing. Maybe they forgot to CGI in the mining site in the background when he was cycling down the road. But it very much, I got the sense that this village was next door to the site, and that's the impression I get. Because even when they like zoom out on the church, the site's like right behind them, and they get to the church and the village obviously quite quickly because that's why he goes and gets his audiobooks and stuff. So it's like, so how far away is this place? Are they right next to each other, or are they too far? So I think the sort of maybe the editing or the the scene layout could have been a little bit better, but that's a very big nitpick for me. Just sort of especially when characters need to quickly jump back and forth from a couple of these sets to then be like, but that guy had to cycle there. But yeah, I know they have a TARDIS, but it doesn't move from that one spot, so until the very end when it goes down. So you can't use that argument. But yeah, so have you got any other negatives?
Not for me.
Oh, lovely. Well, in which case, before we rate the episode, what fun facts have you got?
I have some fun facts.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! Right then.
Woohoo!
So, the working title was The Ground Beneath Their Feet, which I do quite like. But The Hungry is quite cool as well.
Yeah.
The episode was originally imagined to take place in 2015, not 2020, as in the final episode. This was changed to differ from the events of the Ledworth Dream in Amy's Choice, which also took place in 2015. So I guess people just want to not get too confused, I suppose. The visor, the doctor's glasses and stuff, like that. I barely know her. And the Silurian scanners, etc. All of that was a reference to Silurian technology in the classic series, as well as the Predator film series, as the aliens in those films use helmets that behave and act in the same way. The sound effect when the Doctor swishes his hand through his like little scanner thing is also the very same one that they use in the films with the Predators when they do it. So that's fun and cheap. Yep. Matt Smith celebrated his 27th birthday during the filming of this episode.
Yay, happy birthday.
He's 40 now, so it's a while ago. Oh heck, we're old. The completed episode ended up running at 60 minutes, meaning 15 minutes had to be removed from the final cut to fit the broadcast slot. Will we ever see all of that footage? No, probably not.
Yes, bring it back. Why not?
Bring it back. Release the Chibnall cut. This is the first on-screen Silurian story to feature a female member of the species. So Doctor Who's gone woke. Rest in peace, Doctor Who.
Unbelievable. Can't believe Chibnall made Doctor Who woke.
I know. I can't believe it. Hideous. 8 years before he took over as well. He really has ruined Doctor Who.
He knew how to do it.
In the early stages of production, the Silurian masks were designed to be very similar to their classic series counterparts. The scrap design ended up being used in a Doctor Who comic instead called The Last Dimension. So they ended up using it. Well, there you go. You can see what the Silurians could have looked like.
Go and have a gander after this. I think that's if that's right, I think that's a crossover episode with the Doctors.
It's with lots of Doctors in it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that one. You probably have that.
It, yeah.
Yes. One major story element cut from the final script featured armadillo-like dinosaurs called armosaurs. On the nose. Which would have emerged from the ground and kidnapped the people instead. This had to be changed due to, you guessed it, budget constraints. And the bioprogrammed quicksand was decided upon instead, because that's the cheaper alternative. So a shame, because I'm sure they would have been adorable, but
would have been better.
Yeah. A deleted scene featured the Doctor and Amy talking about the lives of the future Amy and Rory and what it would have been like for them.
Dead in New York, that's what it's going to be like.
Yeah, dead and gone, long gone.
Yeah.
Moffat chose Chris Chibnall to write the story based on the strength of his character-focused tortured episodes Adrift, Fragments, and Exit Wounds. I would never forgive Chibnall for Exit Wounds.
Oh,
that
God.
episode fucks me up every time.
And to be fair, Adrift is horrifying.
Yeah.
There's bits in Adrift.
And I think the guy who plays Tony is the older guy.
He is, yes. Oh,
that's probably what. I mean, Chibnall does reuse actors a lot in his stuff, doesn't he? So maybe that's
Adrift.
the casting.
You've awoken Adrift now. It's horrible. It's horrible. God, I think that's like the worst. That is the worst thing in torture.
Yeah, it's just horrendous.
God.
Anyway.
Don't Google that, kids. Watch that scene. Just Google tortured Adrift scream and then watch the clip.
It's that meme. It's like it's got an image of the show. It's like name of the show. No, it's for your own good. That would be me. Screenshots him screaming from the trailer.
Oh god.
Horrendous. For research, Chibnall watched Doctor Who and the Silurians and read
good.
the Target novelisation, Doctor Who and the Cave Monsters, both of which are written by Malcolm Hulke. He noted the freedom Hulke had taken with the novelisation, managing to change some of the story without the complexities of needing it to be made for TV.
That's why Target novels are a good thing.
Yes, that's why everyone should read them.
Yeah.
And then finally, Chibnall came up with Silurian names Malekith and Restak by taking clumps of letters from popular Doctor Who writers, including Malcolm Hulke and Terence Dix. Obviously, we don't know the names of some of those Silurians yet, but they would have been in the script because Malekith is the Doctor guy going, hello.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there you go.
Lovely fun facts. To be fair, it would surprise me if this one does get a Target novelisation. If they're doing the Zygon one,
I think this would be a good one to do.
Yeah, I would hope so. It might be better than, well, not better, but it has a chance to at least either speed run some of the boring things because they'll probably only be like a few.
And
pages.
you wouldn't need to put a cliffhanger in if you.
No, the cliffhanger will work better in this one. Yeah. But yes, unless they split it into 2 books, which I think would be silly. But who knows? Brill. The last thing we have to do then is rate the episode. Out of 10, what are you going to give it?
I want to hear what you've given it.
I've given it a 6.
Okay, that's not terrible. I give it 7.5.
Nice. I think it's again. I was sort of like thinking like, would I rather watch this or Beast Below? And my answer was this. So it's better than Beast Below. Just because I think the monster is more interesting in this. There are more stakes, and again, Beast Below just has no stakes, which I think is why it ranks so low. It's because there's there's just nothing going on. At least there's some kind of action in this. And I think the Salarian design just sort of pumps it up a bit more than it would if it was just a generic monster that was new and introduced. I think it might be a little bit less. But because it's got that similar to Victory,
and for a lot of people, it probably still is basically a new monster to them.
That's true.
That's why it's not, like
no. And I mean, it was a new villain to me when I first watched it, but I just think it's just a bit meandering. I think this part 1, which is probably why I hadn't really rewatched it a lot before. So I'm hoping that part 2 will pick up the pace a little bit and be a little bit more streamlined. But yeah, that is it for this week's. Next week is episode 9, Cold Blood, the second part of this 2-parter. After that, intriguing cliffhanger. Where do you think the story's going to go?
Death.
Oh,
death. Cracks in time.
Does anybody actually? Oh, Rory. Only Rory dies, doesn't he? I think everyone else lives. Oh, and obviously the Salarian.
Yeah, and a couple of people stay behind as well.
Yeah, but I would class that as dying.
Oh no, neither do I. But
no, yeah, but
things change up.
Yeah. I mean, I think for
and
this
a layer,
one,
obviously.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how much of a Salarian presence there is in terms of what happens and sort of the dialogue and the action kind of stuff. I remember one scene is one Salarian like jumping on the steps and trying to whip the Doctor with the tongue. I remember that scene quite vividly, but
you vividly remember the Doctor being whipped.
Yeah, with a tongue.
Oh, okay, that's better.
Yeah, I think I can't really remember too much sort of other than someone getting shot, some bickering, and then Rory dying. I think is probably how I would sum up the episode before watching it. Okay. What do you remember?
I mean, I remember the ending, obviously.
Yeah.
And we kind of get the reveal of what's inside the crack, with what the Doctor grabs out of there. So there's a bit of expansion of that right at the end. Yeah. But yeah, I am excited to see where like some of the side characters do kind of go and end up, and how much screen time they get, how much screen time Amy and Mo get in their little adventure as well, and how it all kind of wraps up in a way. And yeah, honestly, I'm excited for Vincent the Doctor, but
I forget that's coming up. Yeah,
I mean that's after Cold Blood, so.
And then it's James Corden.
Then it's the finale.
Woo!
So we're nearly done with this series already.
God,
but that you know, I feel that's a bit too harsh against Cold Blood, because I do enjoy the story. I think it's good. So I am excited to see how they kind of continue to explore the Silurian city and how that all kind of goes about. Getting to see, you know, more characterized Silurians who actually have room to breathe in the next one, like Restak and Malekith and whatever the elder guy is called. So yeah, I am excited for it because I ended up liking a lot of the side characters more than I remembered. So I am intrigued to see where their stories kind of do end up. But yeah, I think it's very much obviously remembered for what happens to Rory at the end more than anything else. But you know, there is an episode all before that, which I am excited to see.
Yes, I'll be very intrigued to see how it all plays out. And hopefully, for me at least, it's more intriguing than this one. But we will see. That'll do it for this then. Yeah, we'll see you all next Saturday, I guess, unless something terrible happens, which fingers crossed, touch wood, it won't. Well, you know,
what a nice note to end on.
Or something really good could happen, and we could be back sooner because maybe they announce. Maybe they do a new trailer for the 60th. Who knows? At time of recording, Russell is on the One Show tonight, so that's true. True. Well, you never know. Who knows? There could be a video that comes out before this one even goes out.
We'll be back when he announces Matt Smith's return on the One Show tonight.
Yeah, which will definitely happen.
Which will definitely happen because he's definitely going to be in it. I haven't lost hope at all.
No,
definitely not lost hope.
Don't blame you. Good luck. I'm sure that's a discussion for another time, but I'm sure
we've had that discussion already.
Well, you can have it as many times as you want because eventually it'll happen.
We've picked the exact wrong time to get to Matt Smith stuff. I'm like, oh, he's so good. It's like, please, I miss him.
And then he does an Oscar-worthy performance in Morbius, and it's like, oh god, how is he not in this?
Whatever will be, will be.
God. But yeah, that'll be it. We could be back beforehand if any Doctor Who news comes on, but if not, we will be back next week. Okay, bye.
Bye.